Welcome to the sessions that we're doing around the innovation agenda and how marketing powers growth and change. This is the most exciting time, I think, to be a marketer, and we have some great marketers up on stage, because so much is happening between AI and technology and data and sort of new ways of working and the innovation that's coming in here. And we have a really great panel today that's going to talk about from brand to build, how marketing drives product innovation. I'd like to introduce the panel here and let them get started. So first, our moderator for the panel is Mosheh Oinounou. He's the founder of Mo News. You can catch him on mo.news. CBS, Fox, long history of being a reporter and working in the industry. We'll be hosting this esteemed panel of Naomi Rodiles. On the end there, Senior Director, Global Integrated Communications with Medtronic. And then sitting in the middle there is Amy Malagamba, Vice President, Corporate Marketing for the Standard Insurance Company. So with that, look forward to the session. Thank you, guys.
And we'll mainly just be talking about how difficult we had it as kids growing up with names like Oinounou, Rodiles, and Malagamba. Took up like half the panel just for our last names.
Exactly.
I appreciate all of you for joining us right now. We have a fun, really interesting series of panels to get the latest and greatest in the world of marketing from some of the most innovative leaders, the most innovative companies, and thanks for spending time with us. As I found out last night, there are 34 football fields worth of displays to see at CES. So we appreciate you starting here, seated, and then you can begin to walk the football fields. Quick note, this was set to be a panel of 3. Due to some travel issues, Kristen Reitzel of Jackson Family Wines will not be with us. So sadly, this panel will be dry. It's early, I know, on a Tuesday. There you go. She sends her regrets. But it's a fascinating, there's a lot of interesting themes here. Naomi is a communications and marketing executive at Medtronic, a global leader in medical technology and devices. And she has spent decades focused on innovative ways to work across healthcare, academia, media, and influence people on how to engage with brands. Amy here is the VP of Corporate Marketing at The Standard, which provides insurance, retirement, investment plans, services millions. Amy leads marketing strategy, enterprise research, digital operations, brand, and creative services, and also has decades of experience. As a news person, I am often asked for the headline, but I want to begin with you two when it comes to the headline at your businesses right now, especially as we enter 2026, when we talk about the evolution of marketing here. And that's really the focus of this panel. But today, marketing, as we know, has a very expanded role. You're responsible and involved with data collection, usage, technology, relationships with your customers, and then bring back to product to iterate and innovate. So, beginning with the headline, I'll start with you, Naomi. From your world, as these things evolve right now, what's exciting happening in your space?
Thank you so much. That was a really great intro. And I will promise not to be dry. What I would say is really exciting for us in particular is this relationship building with consumers. We are not a direct-to-consumer organization, but that relationship with our customer, which has historically been, healthcare providers, is and will always remain incredibly important. But we have a much more expanded and important role in engaging and educating consumers about healthcare decisions, ensuring that we are doing our part in enabling access and, and equity in terms of just the information they receive about our therapies and services. And so for us, that's become a huge focus in our business and frankly, our organization broadly for those therapies that, really mandate that kind of relationship.
Yeah, Amy, touching off on that, and we talked about this before the panel, but in some cases, there are companies that are very direct to consumer. In some cases, there are companies that are just B2B. But similar to Naomi, the work at The Standard, you're having to think about relationships at multiple levels.
That's really true. So That wouldn't be the 2026 headline, but I'm going to answer that first.
Oh, sorry.
because
That's right. I just added another question.
But that's okay.
Right.
I think it's a really important point because while our customer is largely employers, so it's employers thinking about what ancillary benefits they're going to offer to their customers or to their employees, the real touch point that comes into play for us is claimants. So it's if someone's filing a life claim or if someone is going into a long-term disability, that we don't find ourselves where we have fallen into a place where process replaces the people. So if you file a life claim, you talk to a person with a name and they take you all the way through. So that's a really important element there. The 2026 headline at the standard is scale and growth. So we've almost doubled in size over the past couple of years with some very large acquisitions, and it has changed the way we need to think about and govern our brand. And that's very new for us. And we're a 100 plus year old organization, and that is, it's a big shift.
Yeah, talk about that shift. When it comes to the expansion you guys have seen, how does that change the way that you're telling the story?
It changes things dramatically. Actually, one of the most interesting challenges we faced on our, if you think about our .com site, and we talk about the accessibility of information, we just, as of January 1st of 2026, changed our product offering based on a very large acquisition that we did 2 years ago. And now we have sunsetted a bunch of products and we're bringing more forward. And we were talking about that claimant experience. We now have 2 separate portals that we need to get people to. We need to have a very clear user experience and customer experience on our website and accessible. So lots of challenges there.
Yeah, talk to me about, as you are marketing, Naomi, how you're gathering data about your customers. And when we talk about customers, we're talking about obviously the relationships you have on multiple levels. How you're gathering that data and then how that is working into how you're messaging out what is happening at Medtronic.
We are a very heavily regulated industry, so the answer is very carefully. But what I'll say is, this isn't really new for us. We are always using voice of customer, consumer data to make decisions about everything, not just our marketing programs or campaigns, but the devices that we develop. I mean, historically, and I think that this is true broadly in med tech, but especially at Medtronic, this is absolutely a sweet spot, one where we as a organization are incredibly patient-centered. So while we may be doing the transaction, from like a business-to-business standpoint, everything that we're doing is really keeping that patient at the center, thinking about, form factor, thinking about all of the ways those features and benefits are going to be customized, personalized, creating an experience, right? So when you think about experience from the marketing journey and how we're influencing those brand interactions, that starts way upstream with product development. And so we use data insights to make all of those decisions.
I'm curious, has there been any interesting examples of things you put out in the marketplace and the data has surprised you, how people are using it, how they're not using it, how they're not interested in it, and how have you then taken that data internally to iterate? I
have actually a really great recent example of this. We recently have, and we're in the infancy stage in our business. I lead the neuromodulation business at Medtronic, marketing communications.
Explain neuromodulation.
Think of, neurodegenerative diseases like Parkinson's disease or, even chronic pain. We develop therapies that address some of the most debilitating diseases and issues out there. And so, one I'm thinking in particular is Parkinson's disease. Medtronic is the originator and world leader in deep brain stimulation. We originated this therapy, better known as DBS, 30 years ago, and yet so few people know about it. And one of the issues that we have, noticed, or one of the things that we've realized is that, consumers will say they want all of the information right now, and then the data and behavior show something much different. They want all the information, but they want it in a very digestible way. They want it at the right time, when they want it. So it's very interesting. So that's like a data point that we recently unearthed through some of our direct-to-consumer programming that we've put in the market. And so it's just another way in which we have been surprised, because we got an overwhelming, response to more information, and then it's like, wait, not that much information. So very carefully.
That just-in-time element. I think when you talk about voice of the customer, we've been doing voice of the customer information gathering for years and years, and we have thought about that on two planes. One is our broker community, which is our channel to sell our products, and then the employer community, the consumers of our products. And actually, we don't sell a product, we sell a promise. But so we don't actually have anything tangible like you do. We sell a promise to pay. But one of the things that we've done over the past couple of years to innovate in that space of voice of the customer is we have now an employer community. And we made a decision that we would establish this employer community not with customers of the standard. So it stretches across very, jumbo companies down to medium-sized and small companies. And we have employers who've opted into this, and they're a very real-time test for us. So as we're thinking about developing a portal for absence management, we're able to go to this employer community with 100+ employers and say, what do you think of this? What do you think of this portal? How do you think this will resonate with your employees? And so it's really generated this real-time aspect into our voice of the customer.
Yeah, in both cases, in Naomi's case, you guys obviously have the physicians and the doctors, but then also you have the patients and the caregivers. In your case, Amy, you have the employers, but then of course there's the end users, the employees. How do you go about getting feedback from those employees, and how are you able to incorporate that beyond just hearing from the employers?
That's something we're still working on.
Yeah.
So we've talked about whether we would have, so as I just talked about with this employer community, we've talked about should there be an employee community. We don't have it at this point. It's an interesting next horizon.
Naomi, as we live in this world now where, obviously, you sell the devices, you're working with these physicians, but people want information, right? You were talking about that. They're doing their own research. And curious, as things have evolved, especially in the last few years with social media, people gathering information, how do you go about, and I know you had the Parkinson's example, how do you go about communicating and educating the patients and caregivers? And is there a way that you have to think about communicating to them differently than you would with the medical providers?
Absolutely. I think this has been the stretch. And when we think about scale, Amy used that term, and I think that's so important. How do we communicate with audiences, broad audiences, right? That historically, we haven't necessarily prioritized in this way, right? We've always prioritized communicating with patients just via the HCP, right? And now that direct relationship, building that trust, helping people understand and be educated about their healthcare decisions so they can go in and have a fruitful conversation with their provider is so critically important, especially, someone who's dealing with something as debilitating as, for example, Parkinson's disease or chronic pain. These are therapies that have been around for decades, so they're safe, effective, proven. So the issue isn't clinical or efficacy. It is access. It is understanding, and so it's super important. And making sure that it's done in a way that people understand, right? I mean, not the way that you talk to someone who's an expert in the field is absolutely different than someone who's hearing about deep brain stimulation and, considering brain surgery. While minimally invasive, it's absolutely a barrier to someone making a decision about this. So how do you make the information, personalized? How do you give it to them when they want it in a digestible manner, and at the right time?
And from a brand perspective, how do you think about the consistency of that message and keep the integrity of your brand as you're getting these messages out into these channels, which are increasingly accessible to everyone in your company to be able to post and opine. So that brand governance comes into play.
That's actually, I want to expand on that a little bit, because that's another, opportunity, I think, for all of us, is the more integrated multi-channel approach, moving beyond just, our, sales team that's incredible and amazing, but moving beyond just that, sales HCP relationship or marketing HCP relationship to more of a multi-channel, digital-first approach, where we are able to meet people where they are looking for the information in a way that, again, is...
Which channels are you finding success, or at least experimenting with right now?
An age-old that we have really invested in is, our Congress channel. So being, when I'm thinking about HCPs, but we think about automation, stack adapt, so, more programmatic marketing, communication, and, a real digital-first approach, which again is not super common in the med tech space. It is obviously in, direct consumer spaces. You think of that transactional. This is much more about education and relationship building than anything really necessarily promotional or, getting a transaction out of it.
Yeah, and I think for us, when you think about scale and you think about a company that's doubled in size, we both come from very highly regulated industries. And so when you acquire a business in this space, you tend to announce the intent to acquire, and then there might be a year between sign and close, and there often is a year between sign and close. And so in that time frame, if you want to think about the customers, the claimants, the employees, to become the employees of your company, the only way they're getting information about you is your front door, your .com site, and places like LinkedIn and Instagram. And so that almost sounds, it's amazing to me, like, really, we're thinking about Instagram as a platform? Yes, it turns into a great storytelling platform for employee engagement and talent retention. And if you want to talk about what drives product innovation, retaining your talent to be excited about coming into the company, it plays a key role. And so that's a place for us.
One of the challenges, though, with like these highly regulated industries is you are required to use certain language, everything is lawyered. And when you're dealing with like a healthcare provider, you're dealing with employers, like they might be plugged in, but it's a completely different language you need to use to reach, regular people out there.
100%.
Yeah.
And when I think about this is absolutely a challenge or opportunity that we are working through. I loved your example about Instagram, because that is not a channel where today, it's something that we are aspiring to, step into because of that very personal lived-in experience that you can share on, when you think about influencer, for example. I'll use Parkinson's, someone with Parkinson's, their lived experience, like people, go through so much, and what they've gone through is so deeply personal and so real. And there's no better place to tell a story like that than, authentically on a platform like Instagram or, Meta broadly. And so I'd love to see us be able to do more of that, step into more of that influencer space, leverage that real, patient experience to help educate more people so that those who could benefit understand that our therapies are an option for them.
Amy, are you guys thinking about those platforms or starting to like be on LinkedIn?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
So LinkedIn is a primary platform for us. We have expanded into Instagram for the storytelling. And I think one of the things we're looking at now, and some of these things seem so obvious, but in our companies, it just hasn't been a thing. We're looking at YouTube. So to have more long form storytelling in a place that you can actually have a channel that you can leverage across those other platforms where these pieces live. We're at the very, very beginning of just even talking about that as a strategy.
So it seems like while like there was a time where there was direct to consumer and not direct to, like everything is direct to like there's an element
Absolutely.
of that for all your companies.
It's a digital first world. So to think that you're not going to be able to find information on these channels is silly, right? What we need to be doing is being more intentional about how we are creating content and information across these channels. We, for example, have been on YouTube for a long time. LinkedIn is a main, platform for us, but those are just two channels in a very digitally connected world. We should be thinking about, that more online, offline, that, connected, more integrated approach to channel strategy than just sort of the very siloed view that we've used for the longest time.
But to build on that, especially for us, I think it would be remiss not to say the relationship element of our selling model is still at the core of what we do. And so when we're talking about these platforms, we're really talking about raising brand awareness. And so for a company like ours that's in the middle of this scale, the Standard has been able to, through broker relationships, do a great job over many years. But now, as we're moving into a top 5 provider space of workplace benefits, the game needs to change. You need to think about advertising. You need to think about national brand recognition in a way that we had never had to do before. So really, a lot of this becomes it provides the platform that enhances those finalist presentations.
Mm-hmm.
As we talk about change, we've been talking about generational change, especially as more and more of Gen Z comes into the workforce. And, in both of your cases, you're communicating to all generations. Mm-hmm. Amy, I'm sure you have started to learn from your employers what still works and what needs to be changed around that. Curious if you could talk about your lessons learned, especially as, we're almost 2/3 of the way into Gen Z entering the workforce at this point.
Yeah. So that taps into, we have an enterprise thought leadership program. And so we do proprietary research, and we pick a topic every year. And so a couple of years ago, we picked Gen Z. And one of the things that's really cool about Gen Z from a thought leadership perspective is you might think about thought leadership in pillars. And when you speak generationally, you cut across all the pillars. And so that research really created some very interesting ahas that we brought forward to employers. So our employers were thinking about, you did think about what benefit packages do we want to offer, and are the Gen Zers going to extend the mindset of the millennials? And that was kind of an assumption. And our research showed the opposite. So our research showed that the Gen Zers were kind of thinking more like the Gen Xers. And the importance of that from an employer perspective is I really need to think about the benefits I'm providing. These Gen Zers are caring more about retirement savings.
So Gen Z is caring more about retirement than millennials did at this point.
Yes.
Fascinating.
Yeah.
What do we think of, like, the why? Have we gotten to the why of it?
I think the world has a lot to do with it. I think
Yeah.
it's just the pressure that this generation is facing when they're getting out of college is different than the
affordability
half
issue.
step above them. Yeah.
So then taking in that data, as you're starting to learn about that from your employers, how is that either changing how you're messaging or going so far as to changing the products that you're offering?
It doesn't change the products we're offering as much as it changes the messaging and actually establishes if you just want to think about building brand, it continues to build the integrity of our brand and the efficacy of our message.
Naomi, how do you think about the generational communication?
The generational piece becomes very interesting because as more as the population ages, you have those in Gen Z and Gen X, millennials that are the caretakers, and they are just as interested in helping inform those decisions of their parents and loved ones as those who will get the therapy. And so they become a very important stakeholder in an ecosystem of audiences that we have not historically engaged with.
Hence Instagram.
Exactly.
I want to talk about AI because we're required at CES to always mention AI on every single panel, and we've gone a half an hour without saying the word, which I think is a crime. Curious about how you're integrating AI into your experiences, both internally and externally, especially as we've talked about how regulated your industries are, and when it comes to your information and security, et cetera, but you also need to be engaging with these new platforms. How are you thinking about it?
It's unavoidable. So one of the main things that we're doing is actually this standard has been moving more aggressively than one would think into this space, and we do have an enterprise group that's looking at and approving AI implementations across our platforms. And so what our marketing team is doing is we've got a member of my team sits on that council and actually talks about, so one of the big things, if you think about this space, is enrollment materials. And then you think about voiceover, and you think about how AI has moved into this voiceover space, highly regulated industry, thinking about how that works. And so that's been one of the places that we're looking at, probably one example that I'd give, since we're already a half hour in.
Medtronic is the largest med tech company in the world. So AI has played for a very long time a significant role in the development of our devices. We've got lots of really cool innovation from a product therapy perspective. Lots of great examples. From a marketing communications perspective, we've also embraced it. I don't see it, given the human, you think about empathy, you think about like the actual, drivers of decision making when it comes to how we're communicating and what we're communicating. That being said, AI to develop content at scale, more modular content, maybe getting this is my ambition, the first round or two of a content review process automated with claims data, all of that.
So hoping AI will speed things up.
Absolutely, help us get to content approval faster. But I don't see it as being like a full-on automated process, just given the importance of it being accurate.
But as you think about all these new platforms you need to reach with
Absolutely.
limited resources.
Yeah, content at scale. I don't know how do we get there at speed? How do we get there at scale without the use of some sort of AI automation?
While regulated and compliant. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And then, wanted to look internally now at your organizations, lessons learned internally on how to make your organizations more efficient, work together better. Naomi, I know R&D is the lifeblood of medical products, and that's led to integration internally. Curious, for companies and marketers here that have challenges internally, have various silos, any lessons learned from a world where you've been pretty integrated?
Yeah. In my career, I would say that this organization, Medtronic, is almost masterclass at thinking about marketing beyond downstream, right? That our influence upstream is really fueling, business decisions, right? Like where we go next, what products, how do we adapt them, how do we personalize them? A lot of that's coming from marketing. So it's this really awesome interconnection that is sort of a mandatory to how we drive business and business decisions, even, in terms of product development. So I guess my lesson learned would be more integrated, better.
Is there a way or systems you have in place where you bring that consumer feedback into the company? Like, have you found some ways are more successful than others in terms of either the cadence of meetings, the nature of what you're doing? And maybe it's Medtronic specific, but curious how you bring that consumer feedback back to the powers that be at the company.
Honestly, at the core, you said it. We are an R&D. I mean, R&D is the lifeblood. So everything sort of centers around that. Yet product innovation can't really happen without marketing, without comms, without clinical, without HEPR, without, right? Like you've got all, so it's sort of the natural evolution of product development, especially in the med tech space, given all of what informs how we do it and what we do. So I think it is just by the nature of the business, frankly.
Got it. Amy?
I think our current challenge, it kind of goes back to that 2026 headline that I gave you. So as we're thinking about, we're in a brand integration space. And so when you think about that messaging, I talked about these were very large acquisitions that we did with very well-known brands. So finding a way to get us all onto that one brand with that one message, with that go forward, with that go forward message across all of these platforms is really the big thing right now.
Curious, because I know a number of companies are often dealing with mergers and acquisitions, and from a marketing, using your marketing mind here, how do you think about when you bring in those new companies? How are you thinking about the existing brand, the new brand's integration, the Venn diagram, if you will? How do you approach that process?
So that's the whole house of brands or branded house decision. And so at the Standard, it is a branded house. So really, in order to be successful long-term in mergers and acquisitions, I think you've got to really foundationally know, are you a branded house or a house of brands? So if you acquire something, is it going to sit and live with its own its own thing, and you're going to reap the benefits of that, or are you bringing it all together? So at the Standard, it has been about becoming a branded house. And
that can be more challenging in some cases,
absolutely,
right? Yeah.
Absolutely. In my past, I worked at a house of brands, and so what you do is you acquire operating companies, and what you really do is instill process. But their brand lives as their brand. So a branded house is generally buying brands. For us, we are just expanding our portfolio or deepening our portfolio. So in the latest case, we really have sunsetted prior products and introduced new.
Got it. What would you say, and I'll throw it out to either of you, is your biggest challenge right now as technology evolves, the consumer becomes more informed, you're thinking about all these communities. Is there a particular challenge that is top of mind right now for you?
I would love for us to find a way in our highly regulated environment to adopt AI and leverage it for all of its goodness in terms of scaling and expediting content development. That is going to be critical, especially as we enter into consumer spaces where content is everything, and we need to have a more on-demand and consumer-centric way of approaching content development. It's honestly, I see it as an opportunity, and it's absolutely something that our organization is embracing. It's just, it is going to be a ton of work, and to navigate it, it's a new space, it's new technology, new platforms. So I see it as more of an opportunity than anything negative or challenging, but that to me is where we need to go.
Sound like a good marketer. I asked it as a challenge, and you talked about it as an opportunity.
Yes, exactly.
Amy, same question for you.
And I think that's a great answer, and I would say yes. And so that's a wonderful opportunity. I think for us, I think you can hear it's brand awareness moving toward brand affinity. It's the big challenge.
All right. Well, I think we can leave it there. I appreciate you guys for your insight and your candid answers here in a highly regulated space. Naomi. Thanks, you guys. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
Thanks.